8 people switch souls using a mysterious machine and then try to guess who is inside each other's bodies. They are playing a new version of Werewolf. The story goes back a few hours. Shelby was in the bathroom, carefully applying her makeup and putting on a wig, all to give her boyfriend Cyrus a brand new experience. Shelby excitedly walked into the bedroom, only to find Cyrus watching an adult video. Cyrus, clearly embarrassed, said, "Didn't you go out for a run? I was just working." Of course, Shelby didn't believe Cyrus' excuse. Though a bit offended, she still wanted to follow through with their romantic plans. Cyrus, however, remained stiff like a board, and Shelby, feeling bored, decided to give up. The two argued. "I've worked so hard to set the mood. Even wore a wig for you, and this is how you act?" Cyrus retorted. "Well, what did you want me to do? I didn't force you to wear the wig." The argument didn't last long, though. They still set off to attend their college friend Ruben's bachelor party. Tomorrow was Ruben's wedding, and several classmates were coming to celebrate. Shelby's attention was caught by a post on her classmate Nikki's profile. Nikki had over 2 million followers. Whatever Nikki posted, she received a flood of likes and comments. On the other hand, Shelby's account, even though her posts weren't any worse than Nikki's, only got 3 likes. Shelby was so upset that she deleted the post. Soon, they arrived at the party venue. The mansion was one of Ruben's mother's legacies. His mother, an artist, had transformed it into a museum before she passed. As soon as they got out of the car, a bird flew into Shelby's face, startling her. Dennis greeted them at the door, and they quickly met the other guests. A woman named Maya, covered in tattoos, was a Buddhist. Then there was Nikki. She carefully asked about the fruit platter Maya was serving, checking to make sure it didn't contain peanut butter because she was allergic. Brooke arrived next, clearly excited. While a few of the women chatted, Cyrus went to find the evening's guest of honor, Ruben. The two exchanged pleasantries. Standing next to a sculpture filled with sharp blades, they began discussing a former classmate, Forbes. Ruben had invited Forbes as well, but he wasn't sure if he'd show up since they hadn't been in touch for years. In the room, they also discussed an incident involving Dennis and Forbes at a party years ago. Shelby wasn't there at the time, so Maya and Brooke filled her in. Forbes had been a genius in school, always into games. It was Dennis' birthday, and Forbes brought his younger sister along. She was still in high school and underage, but she had a crush on Dennis and told everyone they were a couple. That night, Dennis ended up with Nikki, and the sister, seeing this, started fighting with Nikki. It escalated into a fight between Dennis and Forbes, which led to the police being called. The incident caused Forbes to be expelled from school for bringing his underage sister to the party and letting her get drunk. The sister was later sent to a mental hospital, which was why Forbes was expelled. It was said that Forbes later moved to California, joined a tech company, and had no further contact with anyone. The group sat down at the dinner table and chatted. Cyrus kept staring at Nikki, something Shelby noticed. Ruben, too, was discreetly watching Maya. After a brief speech, Ruben was interrupted by a knock at the window. It was Forbes. He had arrived with a suitcase. He mentioned he had been traveling the world and making money, but his suitcase caught everyone's attention. It was the one containing tonight's game. Forbes teased the group with a few cryptic words, making them even more curious. "So, what was this game? Why not try a round and see for themselves?" Forbes opened the suitcase, revealing a sophisticated device. He pulled out electrodes, and everyone, including Forbes, attached them to their temples. They were told to try it for 20 seconds. When the 20 seconds ended, everyone was back in their own bodies. The suitcase could actually swap people's souls. It was a completely new experience. Some were thrilled, others nervous. Forbes explained that the brain was like a hard drive, and this machine could swap people's hard drives. This was top-secret technology that he and his team had developed. He was excited to share it with everyone since he had received the invitation. They had all played Werewolf before, but this time it was a new version, where souls were swapped, and players had to guess who was in whose body. Ruben was the first to agree to play. Others soon followed. Only Shelby hesitated, asking if it was safe. Forbes assured her it was perfectly safe and even explained how the machine worked to ease her worries. Cyrus encouraged Shelby to join, and eventually, she agreed. Forbes explained the rules. Each person had to take a photo of themselves and write their name on it. Once their souls were swapped, if person A guessed person B's identity correctly, person B would put their photo on A and B out. If A guessed wrong, they were out and would put their own identity on the board. Forbes, as the owner of the machine, would play along but not participate in the game. He knew everyone's identities, ensuring no one could lie. With the rules clear, the game began. In the first round, Brooke stood up in terror, immediately giving away her identity. Everyone guessed she was in Shelby's body, which turned out to be true. Cyrus, who had swapped into Ruben's body, played for a while. Other identities soon emerged. Cyrus was in Ruben's body. Nikki was in Maya's. Maya's body was still a mystery, but they guessed Dennis was in Cyrus' body. Surprisingly, Dennis admitted it. This left Cyrus, hidden in Ruben's body, a bit confused, though he didn't give it away. Cyrus guessed that Dennis's body should be Forbes. Afterward, he secretly approached Forbes and asked why he had pretended to be him. Forbes told him to just enjoy it and not overthink things. Cyrus was wandering around the room when he ran into Nikki. Nikki's body was actually Maya's. Because of the earlier identity revelation, he naturally assumed the person in front of him was Forbes. Maya then told Cyrus that she had once been with Ruben. Now, he was about to get married, but she still had some lingering feelings for him. Cyrus, who was already obsessed with Nikki's body, kissed Maya. Just as they were about to take things further, Cyrus accidentally got scratched by a piece of glass on the chair. Maya's body then approached, and fortunately, they quickly separated before anyone could see. After Maya left, the real Maya asked Forbes who was in her body. Cyrus lied, saying he had written it down on paper but didn't remember it, and invited Maya to continue. However, Maya was no longer interested and started to feel a bit disgusted by Forbes. When Cyrus returned to the room, he saw Shelby, in Brooke's body, dancing with his body. Cyrus had never danced with Shelby before, so now she was really enjoying herself, which made Cyrus unhappy. Cyrus called everyone over, and with Forbes' help, they successfully activated the machine, returning everyone to their original bodies. His deception of pretending to be Forbes wasn't exposed, and now everyone was completely excited, shouting for another round. Shelby, who had been hesitant before, had now completely changed her attitude, while Cyrus was the one who was slightly upset. Dennis came over to talk to Forbes, apologizing for what happened years ago. It was he and Ruben who had exposed Forbes to the school, never expecting it to lead to Forbes' expulsion. Only then did Forbes learn that Ruben had been involved too. He appeared to forgive Dennis casually on the surface. The game was about to begin again, and Forbes informed everyone that the machine's battery was low, so they could only play one more round. Everyone was eager to play, but Cyrus started to back out, claiming he had a headache and didn't want to play anymore. Dennis kept insisting that a headache wasn't a problem, because if he swapped bodies, it wouldn't be his headache anymore. Their bickering almost escalated into an argument. Shelby pulled him into a corner, and Cyrus confessed that in the previous round, he had actually been in Ruben's body. Forbes didn't understand why Cyrus had pretended to be himself, but Shelby still refused to join the game. It was just a game, she said, but earlier, he had insisted she play. Reluctantly, Cyrus agreed, suggesting they set a signal. After swapping bodies, they would raise their eyebrows to confirm each other's identities, and Shelby agreed. Everyone sat back down, and the second round of the game began. Cyrus entered Forbes' body and kept raising his eyebrows, but no one responded. It was clear Shelby wasn't paying attention to him. The second round officially started. Shelby was actually in Nikki's body. She immediately mimicked Nikki's actions and posted a picture on Twitter. Soon, she received thousands of likes, which made Shelby envious. Ruben, now in Dennis's body, was eyeing Maya. It had been mentioned earlier that Maya and Ruben had once been a couple, and he still had lingering feelings for her. Cyrus was chatting with everyone, constantly raising his eyebrows, trying to figure out which one was Shelby. When he realized Maya wasn't Shelby, he moved on. Ruben quickly approached and invited Maya to the balcony. But who was actually in Maya's body? Shelby searched for a while and finally realized the person was her. Finding an excuse, she pulled Shelby into the storage room. Shelby became very angry when faced with Cyrus's accusations. The atmosphere soon turned more suggestive. After all, swapping bodies was much more exciting than wearing a wig. And Shelby locked the door. Ruben took Maya to the rooftop, where Maya's body was actually Brooke's. He had always liked Ruben, and now, using someone else's body, they kissed each other. Back in the storage room, Shelby got more and more into it, even calling out for Forbes, while Cyrus shouted Nikki's name. Eventually, Cyrus couldn't take it anymore and called for a pause, questioning whether Shelby liked Forbes. Shelby was speechless, saying, "Whether it's my body or Nikki's, you don't want to sleep with me, do you?" The argument escalated, and they were now at the point of breaking up. Meanwhile, Ruben and Brooke were getting more intense on the balcony. Unaware that danger was approaching, Ruben and Maya were having too much fun on the upper floor and fell. With no chance of survival, but the bodies that died were Dennis and Maya's, while Dennis's soul was in Cyrus's body, and Maya's soul was in Shelby's body. What were they going to do now? Forbes, now in Ruben's body, was in a panic. He didn't know what to do, but the dead souls quickly confirmed it was Brooke and Ruben. Everyone put their real identities on display. So now, what would happen? Aside from the two deaths, everyone was also surprised to find that Brooke had secretly had feelings for Ruben, and Ruben, on the eve of his wedding, had wanted to sleep with Maya. Now, let's take another look at everyone's real identity. I will refer to each person by their true identity. Nikki suggested that they should call the police, but Forbes immediately rejected the idea. Since the machine was very expensive, there was no way he would turn it over to the police. This conversation raised suspicions among the group. If the machine is so valuable, why did your team allow you to bring it out? And then you threatened to call the police if we don't get swapped back. Cyrus suggested that they discuss it first before switching back. But how do we switch? Dennis and Maya were the first to object. Because their bodies are dead, are we supposed to let them stay dead? Cyrus then suggested that Dennis take over Ruben's body. Dennis disagreed. Why should I give you back my body and go into someone else's? If I can't go back, no one can. The two of them started arguing. Dennis got angrier, recalling how he had dated Nikki and then cheated with Forbes' sister, which Cyrus had mentioned. These words really upset Shelby, who was in Nikki's body. Cyrus thought Dennis was useless. Dennis got angrier and called the police, saying Cyrus had killed two people. He hung up and threw away the phone. Now he was willing to swap bodies. Nikki came over and told everyone that Forbes was missing. Cyrus saw this and quickly rushed to stop her. Fortunately, Nikki acted quickly and knocked him to the ground. Together, they managed to drag Forbes back, since Forbes had explained how the machine worked to Shelby earlier. Shelby was able to operate it. However, at this moment, Shelby shocked everyone. She didn't want to switch back. Both Cyrus and Nikki were stunned and started arguing immediately. Since this was Nikki's body, Shelby mocked Nikki for using her body to gain so many followers on social media. In the end, Nikki got so angry that she punched Shelby, the real Nikki hitting herself. But now only Shelby knew how to operate the machine. They were at a loss. Cyrus tied up Forbes and then went to find Shelby. Shelby was with Maya at that moment. When she saw Cyrus coming, she immediately asked if she was just a substitute for Nikki. Cyrus of course denied it and reminded Shelby to be careful. He had been cut by the glass here earlier. This made Maya immediately realize the first person who was intimate with her in the game was actually Cyrus. Cyrus confessed his feelings to Shelby, swearing that he really liked her, or he wouldn't have stopped their intimacy in the warehouse earlier. What he wanted was her face, not Nikki's. After hearing this, Shelby really started to believe him. Just as she was about to soften, Maya spoke up. Didn't you first make out with me when you were in Ruben's body? Shelby was completely disappointed and left the scene. Nikki woke up Forbes and asked him to operate the machine. The police were probably only minutes away. Shelby came over and told Nikki to leave. She recorded a video insulting Nikki with her body. If Nikki didn't leave, she would post it and ruin her account. Nikki had no choice but to leave. Now, only Shelby and Forbes were left in the room. Forbes taught her a trick. Shelby then went to Cyrus and gave him two options. The first option was for them to switch back, solve the police situation, and continue their previous lives. The second option was that if he really liked Nikki, she could stay in Nikki's body while he went into Ruben's body and they would run away together, while Nikki was left alone. She approached Forbes to ask what Shelby's real plan was. Forbes told her the truth about Shelby's intentions. Cyrus heard the sound of police sirens. To his surprise, after hesitating, Cyrus chose the second option. They swapped bodies and ran away together. Nikki untied Forbes, and they struck a deal. She would go back to her own body while Forbes took her machine. Dennis came over and reminded them that the police were almost here. So, what was Nikki's plan? No matter what the real plan was, Shelby would publicly claim they were going back to their own bodies. Then Dennis would go into Ruben's body. But in reality, Shelby wanted to stay in Nikki's body while Cyrus took Ruben's body and they ran away. Meanwhile, Dennis and Cyrus's body would end up in jail. Their plan was to have the three of them control Shelby, and then have Forbes control the machine. Forbes would take Ruben's body and marry a rich woman. Dennis would take Forbes' body since he was pretty wealthy. Maya would take Brooke's body, and the other three would go back to their own bodies. The action was about to begin. Nikki brought Forbes over and asked him to operate the machine. Dennis was looking at his phone when he noticed something strange. Someone had tampered with his phone. While Shelby wasn't paying attention, Nikki smeared peanut butter on her lips. Nikki's body was allergic to peanut butter. If she wasn't treated within 5 minutes, she would die. Adrenaline brought Nikki back to life, but she would need Forbes to operate the machine. Forbes then took control of the machine and swapped some wiring. At that moment, Dennis realized his money was gone. Earlier in the game, Forbes had been in Dennis's body, but had lied, saying he was Cyrus. Dennis thought it was Cyrus who had secretly transferred his money. The police were already knocking at the door. Nikki revealed the antidote was on her. Cyrus immediately jumped on her to grab it, but was stopped by the other two. The scene shifted, and a woman, looking disheveled, arrived at Ruben's wedding. She was Forbes' sister. The wedding had been ruined, and the bride sat crying. What had happened? The sister finally saw Forbes and rushed over, demanding to know where her suitcase was. Forbes was completely confused. Fortunately, a bystander pulled her away. After calming down, the sister recognized that Forbes' body was actually Dennis. Dennis was stunned. "Why are you here, sister?" Then the sister shocked Dennis with her words, "I'm Forbes." This meant that the Forbes everyone knew had actually been his sister the whole time. Forbes explained that his sister had always had mental health issues, which occasionally flared up. The worst incident happened during that birthday party years ago. After that day, Dennis and Ruben told everyone that the sister had delusions. Dennis insisted that nothing happened between him and his sister for Nikki's sake. When the police arrived, the sister was already drunk and causing a scene. Everyone claimed that she was having an episode, which led to her being admitted to a psychiatric hospital. After Forbes went to California, he developed this machine, hoping to let his sister try body swapping to see if it could help with her condition. However, once the sisters swapped bodies, she immediately knocked Forbes out and planned to take revenge on everyone. Cyrus was suspected of murder and ended up in prison, and Shelby came to visit him. At this moment, Shelby seemed like a completely different person. Cyrus immediately confirmed her identity, and to his surprise, it really was Shelby. Cyrus asked Shelby to help him by telling the police and testifying for him, but Shelby refused. The story then rewinds to last night. Nikki was in Ruben's body, and Maya was in Brooke's body. During the first round of the game, the sister secretly transferred all of Dennis' money, and the machine was still in her hands. The sister was now in Nikki's body. Shelby had actually given Cyrus a chance that day. The two options were actually taught to him by the sister. To his surprise, Cyrus chose the second option and even claimed that he liked her. And with that, the movie ends.